Hi everyone, it's Nicole. Welcome back to my channel and another card making video tutorial. Today I'm super excited to share a card created with the brand new Honey Hive and Busy Bee stitching charts. These are free downloads from Lawn Fawn, and I am using some of my favorite Lawn Fawn products to create these this cute card, but these cute embroidery hoops. I am going to start with the Busy Bee. I have die cut my embroidery hoop from some wood grain cardstock as well as some speckled eggshell cardstock. So the wood grain is what I'm going to use for my hoop. The speckled eggshell I like because it just has a little texture to it. That is what I am using for my cloth, my stitching cloth, if you will. And then for the little screw there up at the top for the hoop, that was die cut from gold matte cardstock. Now I am going to start stitching my bee, and again I have a link in the description as well as on my blog for the Lawn Fawn site where you can download these free charts. You will need the stitching die to complete the card just like this. Or if you are just a stitcher and you want to stitch this on cloth, by all means, go for it. And I am using 4 strands of floss to stitch. So what I like to do is I use 2 strands, fold it in half, and use the loop method. And I am simply going to stitch up my bumblebee. And I will tell you that I think I started in the wrong spot and I end up having to rip it all out and start again. Oops, I started up 1 too high. Now, I didn't have the exact colors that are charted for us. That's no problem. Use what you have. If you already have some embroidery floss at home, go for it. I do think I have the 964 light sea green for the butterfly wings, and I did have 310 for the black, but the yellows I had were just something else. So I'm going to use 725 for the bumblebee, and then for the beehive, we'll talk about those colors here in a minute. The chart shows you the pink area. You can either stitch that or you can leave it. I opted to leave it and not fill that in with additional stitching, but you totally could do that if you want to. For all of my stitchers out there, these would also be fantastic designs for all of those small, teeny tiny little embroidery hoops that you can pick up at Hobby Lobby or at Amazon or whatever. So those are another fun option to use with these. But for everyone who loves stitching on cards, and I know there's a ton of you who love the stitching dies like from Spellbinders and things like that, this is another great option. And hopefully this is just the beginning of some fun chart designs from Lawn Fawn to use with their stitching dies. It takes all of the guesswork out of it for us, makes it very easy to stitch some really cute cards. Now, you guys know that of course I am going to want to combine this with my So Very Mice favorite stamp set. I mean, of course, right? I love So Very Mice. I love how it looks like they're stitching up these designs, and so they will make an appearance here. Stitch however you feel the most comfortable. I'm obviously speeding through this to save us a little bit of time. And you may notice that my hand is staying on top of the cardstock and how I slightly have it rolled over my finger. I really did try to do stick and stab, where you come in, go through the top, and then you push it back through the bottom. I do not particularly like stitching that way. I use the sewing method. And so I managed to curl my cardstock and use the sewing method for the majority of my stitching, and I was so much happier. That is a personal preference. It's how I personally like to stitch, and so make it work for you, however that may be. I'm going to do a little back stitching. I think I had to rethread it because I started in the wrong spot. I mean, you guys, how could I not follow an easy chart like this? I think I thought I was smarter than the chart. Clearly not. So here is my bumblebee, and we're going to do the honey hive next. I'm going to go ahead though and assemble my hoop so that glue is drying. I am going to put a little line of glue around my stitch piece. I'm going to pop that wood grain embroidery hoop right around the edge. I'm going to put a couple of dabs of glue on the back and then go ahead and finish my hoop. And then I can put some acrylic blocks or something heavy on top to hold that down. I noticed some of the little holes didn't pop out, so I'm just going to use a poke or pierce tool of some sort to get rid of any of those extra little pieces. You can kind of get an idea of what all I'm going to be using. Look at all those little dots come flying out. I'm using the roller part of my Spellbinders tool-in-one. I'm going to just pierce all of those pieces out. And I'm going to move my embroidery hoop die there, just cleaning it up. This is the die set that you will need to create this. And again, doubling up my embroidery floss, and we are going to stitch the honey hive. And again, it is charted with the light blue area. That's the design of where all the pierced holes are. You can stitch that in any color you like, or you can leave it. I opted to leave mine as is, and I am going to leave out the little purple from the design. I just didn't feel like stitching it, so I didn't. Now this one, I didn't have the colors either. So for this, I am using 725 and 742 for my yellows. 310 again, I did have that for the black. And then for the little backstitch divider line, I'm actually using 436. This is going to be a nice like light brownish color, and I'm just going to do quick little backstitch lines there here in just a minute. So here I went ahead and stitched the rest of that off camera, and then I'm doing a little back stitching before we move on to finishing the rest of the card. This would be a great activity. Get everything ready to go. Die cut this little hoop in the evening, stitch these up the next day or on the weekend or the next evening after work. You can sit down and put together the rest of your card. And maybe you want to stitch up a bunch of things. Maybe you want to stitch the heart and the rainbow. There's a brand new star. Or you want to use this and you want to stitch more of your own designs. You can do that so easily. I love stitching in the evening while I watch TV or listen to an audiobook or podcast. And then you can always just put your cards together then really easily the next time you sit down to make cards. So I'm putting my line of glue again just around the edge. Going to be careful. I don't want a bunch of glue on my stitching, so I'm being more careful than normal. And then of course we're going to put the rest of our hoop together. I love the detail here. This is probably one of my top favorite sets from Lawn Fawn or from anyone of all time, probably because I am a stitcher. We're going to use the awesome pattern paper What's Sewing On from Lawn Fawn. I'm going to use the yellow shades. I thought that they would look super pretty with our busy bee and honey hive. I'm going to trim the floral paper to 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches, and we're going to trim the yellow stitching paper to 3.5 by 5.5 inches. Then I'm going to warm up my Glimmer hot foil machine because I want to glimmer my greeting, pardon me. I'm going to use the Scripty Words hot foil plate to foil the word thanks. And then we're going to combine that with the So Very Mice So Much, the SEW, so much, so we can do thanks so much. While my Glimmer hot foil machine is heating up, I did take my favorite Simon Says Stamp Scallop Stitches die. I'm using the smallest die from there, and I die cut 2 borders from the matte gold cardstock that I am placing along the long edges of that stitch paper. And then I'm going to just glue this onto the floral background. So there's only a touch of floral showing. I probably could have just put a little strip of floral at the top and the bottom to not waste paper. I didn't, but you could. And then I am going to foil my thanks. Now, the great thing about this Scripty Words Hot Foil set is it coordinates back to the previously released Big Scripty Words stamp set and dies. I'm not using the stamp set, of course, today, but if you have those dies, you can die cut very easily your foiled words. So that's what I'm going to do. I did find a set. I'm using the circle stackables from Lawn Fawn, but anything that will fit back behind. I die cut another circle from Speckled Eggshell that I'm placing back behind my stitching just to kind of make it look a little bit cleaner, and gluing that in place. Once my Glimmer hot foil system, and I have many videos here on my channel showing how to do this. I did this kind of quick today. I didn't really go through the steps because it's the only foiling on my design. I foiled the thanks in gold, and I'm going to use that coordinating die I was just talking about to die cut my greeting. Once we have that, I am going to stamp the phrase "so much" directly on my background, and then I'm going to put everything together. I have not stamped my mice or my needle yet, but we will do that here in just a second. Trying to keep everything cleaned up as I go. I'm going to double check one more time that the stamped images that I want to place on here fit within the design. It looks like it's good. So I'm going to take my mini Misty and we're going to line up where I want the greeting to be stamped, the rest of our greeting. I am going to stamp this with the Simon Says Stamp Woodsy ink. It's just a nice brownish color ink that I thought complemented the rest of my design nicely. Stamp that right on the pattern paper. And then we're going to attach, or maybe I'm going to stamp next. We need to stamp our mice. But I am going to attach my embroidery hoops with foam adhesive. I'm popping them up. So I'm going to pop up the first one. The second one slightly overlaps the first. And because of this, I don't want to put foam under the entire thing. So once I have the first one in place, then I can kind of figure out where to exactly put the foam on the second one. And then I want to glue down the foiled thanks, and I want that to slightly overlap my embroidery hoops. And that I'm going to glue down and let sit while I stamp and color the mice, which will only take a couple of minutes. It's not going to be super detailed coloring. Now, with a die cut heavy card especially that I'm incorporating some stamped and colored images on, I often love to use no line coloring. To me, I like how it eliminates that dark, harsh black line. And so that's what we're going to do today. I have a scrap of Bristol Smooth cardstock here that I am going to stamp my needle and thread and two of the mice. The one mouse with the thimble on its head is probably one of my favorites. I think he's just darling. And of course, I want one of them to look like he's been or she's been stitching. And I'm stamping those with the Jellyfish ink from Lawn Fawn. I love the Bristol Smooth cardstock for Zig Clean Color Real Brush Marker coloring, and I am going to start coloring in my images. All of the marker colors that I'm using today will be listed and linked below the video here on YouTube, as well as over on my blog for easy reference. I will say I'm using beige and light beige with pink haze for my mice. Very limited colors. We don't have a lot going on here. It's, like I said, very, very minimal coloring. I'm outlining my image first with my darker color, and then I will use the light color to kind of pull out the dark color and blend it out into the rest of the image. Little pink haze for the insides of the ears to start with, and then that light beige color. We're just going to color all over the whole thing, including all of the face, including the nose. Get that blended out a little better. And then a little pink for the cheek. Let's go ahead and do our second mouse. I opted for the little tan mice today too. I just felt like they blended into the background, the pattern paper and all of that a little bit better. Sometimes I do gray, sometimes I do beige, it just depends. And again, coloring right over the entire face, blending it all out. Little pink for the cheeks and the insides of the ear. We're going to use a darker brown color now for the noses, and platinum brown and gray tint for the thimble. So it kind of just looks like a silver thimble. Just a basic standard thimble here. Look at that detail. Isn't that so cute? And then finally, we're going to use that platinum brown again for the needle. And then I'm going to grab a bright yellow to trace the thread in the needle. So the only color that wasn't a neutral that I used for my coloring today. Now, before we finish the faces, I will take a black fine tip pen and draw in the mouths, but I'm going to use my dies, die cut my images, and then when we're all done, I will take a black jelly roll pen and add the eye detail back in. I always wait to do that until after I have die cut. If you do it before, often the rollers in the die cutting machine will flatten the eyes. So I always like to save that step for last. If you want to just use a black pen, you can definitely do that ahead of time. I am just partial to that jelly roll pen. I love the little bit of extra detailing it provides for faces on critters. So now we are going to add these and any finishing details to our stitched embroidery hoop cards. I am going to pop up my mice. I like that little bit of extra dimension. So I'm going to pick where the foam adhesive goes underneath each mouse so that there isn't foam kind of funny, because they do overlap the embroidery hoops. And we have our first little guy right here. And I love how his hand is up. There's my black jelly roll pen. Look at that. The face just pops. We are going to glue that needle with thread to his hand, like he's holding it up, like he just finished stitching, or she. I don't know why I keep saying he. It could be me. And then we're going to do the same thing for our sitting mouse with the thimble. I think I put too much foam though. Let's take one of those squares off. That looks better. And now finishing details. We're going to put a little candy apple red heart in the center of the door on the beehive. You knew I was going to have to add a heart somewhere. And then I'm going to add some pretty pink posh gold pearl hearts kind of scattered throughout the design. We'll take the entire panel and secure it to a white side fold card base. Super quick, super easy, and a really, really fun way to incorporate stitching, especially if you're a stitcher or maybe you only stitch on cards. So definitely drop a note down below. Tell me, do you just stitch on cards? Do you also cross stitch? Let me know down in the comments. I love hearing from all of you guys. I'm going to use those triangle trays from Simon Says Stamp to contain all my little gold pearls. And we're just going to scatter a few. I think it really ties in nicely to the gold detailing on the rest of the card. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for this stitched bee-themed card featuring the brand new downloads from Lawn Fawn and Lawn Fawn Stamps and Dies. The supplies I used to create my card are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining me today for another paper crafting tutorial. I love being able to share with this incredible community of crafters. I want to give a huge shout out and special thank you to my amazing Patreon members. If you're interested in joining Patreon, please click the link in the description underneath the video here on YouTube. Patreon is a private community where you can support more of what I do. There's exclusive content, you'll receive a handmade birthday card from me during your birthday month, monthly lives for my top tier patrons, and more. We would love to have you join our growing community. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel, click the like button, and don't forget to click the notification bell so you're always notified when I have a video or go live. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you again next time.